There's a silent battlefield most people never talk about, not out there in the world, but inside. A battlefield where your potential and your fear collide every single day. And here's the brutal truth. The very things that terrify you, the ones that make your chest tighten and your mind whisper, "Not me, not now," are usually the exact doors you need to walk through. Fear is not a warning to retreat. It's often a compass pointing directly at the life you were meant to live. Think about it. The moments that have shaped you most were never comfortable. Growth never came wrapped in ease. Every breakthrough you've had was born from discomfort, from risking rejection, from daring to do something that made your hands shake. Yet most people treat fear like a wall, when in reality, it's a gateway. If it scares you, it means it matters. If it scares you, it means you care. And if it scares you, it's probably the very thing that will change your life. This is where greatness begins, at the edge of fear. The reason fear has such a powerful grip is because it hides its true nature. Fear pretends to protect you, but it's really just protecting your comfort zone, and your comfort zone is the cage of your old self. When you stare at an opportunity and your mind screams, "What if I fail?" you must answer with a bolder question: "What if I don't?" Imagine how much of your life you've already given to safety, to routines, to the predictable rhythm of playing small. How many dreams have you quietly buried just to avoid the sting of fear? The uncomfortable truth is this: the path of least resistance never leads to greatness. Every dream worth having demands courage as its currency. Every mountain demands you step into thin air before you find your footing. The people who build extraordinary lives are not fearless. They are simply willing to act while their hearts are pounding.
They walk into the unknown while doubt screams at them, because they know that fear is not a stop sign. It is a signal that something important is on the other side. Think of the people you admire most. Every single one of them stood where you are now, staring down a decision that terrified them. They didn't start as giants. They became giants because they moved through fear instead of waiting for it to vanish. That's the secret no one tells you. Fear doesn't go away before you act. It only fades after you do. The first step is always the hardest because it shatters the illusion that fear is bigger than you. It's not. Fear is loud, but it is hollow. It's a shadow, not a wall. When you take action despite fear, you expose it for what it really is: smoke, not stone. Every risk you take rewires your brain to trust your own power. Every leap builds proof that you can survive discomfort. And once you taste that, fear loses its grip on you. You begin to crave the stretch, the challenge, the wild beating of your heart when you stand at the edge of something new. You stop asking, "Is it safe?" and start asking, "Is it worth it?" That is the shift that transforms your entire life. Here's what no one wants to admit. Most lives are built around the avoidance of fear. People choose jobs they hate just because they're safe. They stay in relationships that drain them because leaving feels terrifying. They bury their dreams under piles of excuses because chasing them means stepping into uncertainty. And then they wonder why they feel half alive. Comfort feels like safety, but it quietly suffocates you. Fear feels like danger, but it secretly points toward your destiny. The irony is that staying comfortable is the riskiest thing you can do. You risk your potential. You risk your passion. You risk looking back at the end of your life and realizing you never even try to live it fully. If something scares you, that's not a red flag. That's a green light. It means you've hit the boundary of who you've been and you're staring at the doorway to who you could become. Fear isn't the enemy. Fear is the invitation. And every time you accept it, you become someone stronger, braver, and more unstoppable than you were before. There's a version of you that exists beyond your fear, a version so powerful it almost frightens you to imagine. That version is not waiting for life to hand them confidence. They're building it one terrifying step at a time. Confidence isn't born from comfort. It is forged in the fire of fear. It's built when you speak even though your voice trembles, when you launch the project even though you're not ready, when you leap before you know how you'll land. Every great achievement you've ever witnessed came from someone choosing to do the thing that scared them. Fear and greatness are dance partners. You can't have one without the other. So stop waiting for fear to disappear. It won't, but it doesn't have to. The goal is not to kill fear. The goal is to carry it with you and move anyway. Because the life you crave is not hiding behind what's easy. It's hiding behind what scares you. And the moment you decide to chase it despite the trembling, your entire life begins to change. The reason fear feels so paralyzing is because it demands certainty before it lets you move, and life will never give you that. It whispers, wait until you're ready, knowing you never truly will be. But here's the truth. Readiness is a myth. No one ever feels completely prepared to chase the life they dream of. Every hero you've ever admired took their first steps in the dark, with trembling hands and a pounding heart. They didn't wait to feel fearless. They chose to act while fear screamed inside their chest. That's what makes them heroes. Not the absence of fear, but their refusal to be ruled by it. Every time you take a step into what scares you, you prove to yourself that courage is not something you're born with. It's something you build. You gather fragments of bravery from each leap you take, and slowly, piece by piece, you construct a version of yourself that can walk into storms without flinching. Fear can either be your prison or your fuel, and you get to choose which. Here's the paradox. The very fear that makes you want to run is often the clearest signal that you've found your path. Fear sharpens your senses when you're about to do something meaningful. It shows up at the threshold of change, screaming that everything might collapse, and that's how you know you're onto something real. Comfort doesn't trigger that reaction because comfort costs nothing. But building the life you dream of always demands risk. The risk of failure, rejection, embarrassment, and falling short. Yet even those failures are not your enemies. They're the bricks of your foundation. Every stumble teaches you strength. Every rejection teaches you resilience. Every public mistake teaches you how to stand tall while the world watches. Fear makes you grow because it forces you to stretch beyond the limits you've built around yourself. That trembling you feel when you imagine something greater, that's not danger. That's destiny knocking on your door. And the only way to open it is to walk straight through the fear guarding it. People often ask, what if I fall? But the real question is, what if you rise? What if the thing that scares you is the exact thing that unlocks the life you've been secretly longing for? What if the leap doesn't break you? What if it builds you? Fear shows up because you're standing on the edge of transformation, and your old self is fighting to survive. It's terrified because it knows that if you take that leap, you'll never be the same again. And that's the point. Most people live small because they misunderstand fear. They think it's a sign to turn back, when it's actually a signal to step forward. They let fear make their decisions, and fear only knows one thing: how to keep you the same. Fear will tell you to stay in the job you hate, because starting your own thing might fail. Fear will tell you to stay silent, because speaking your truth might upset someone. Fear will tell you to dim your light, because shining might attract criticism. And so, they obey fear and call it being realistic. But realism without risk is just another word for regret. The truth is, your dreams are not unreasonable. They're simply larger than the life fear has convinced you to settle for. You are capable of more than your fear can comprehend. And the only way to prove it is to act before you feel ready, to leap before you feel qualified, to build the wings on the way down. Because nothing grows in the soil of safety. Only fear leads to growth if you let it. Fear will never leave, but it can be transformed. You can alchemize fear into power if you're willing to feel it fully and move anyway. That's how courage is born, not by eliminating fear, but by embracing it like an old companion and saying, "Come with me." When fear rides with you, but no longer drives, everything changes. Suddenly, the trembling becomes excitement. The doubt becomes curiosity. The anxiety becomes energy. And you begin to understand that fear has been trying to serve you all along. It just speaks in a language of warning. Your job is not to silence it, but to listen without obeying. Smile at your fear, thank it for trying to protect you, and walk forward anyway. Because the life you dream of is not built on comfort. It is built on courage, and courage is always found on the other side of fear. So go toward what scares you. Go boldly. Go trembling. Go unfinished, unready, unsure, but go. Because fear is not your enemy. Fear is your map.